This video is sponsored by Crimson Manifesto, Knuckles OX, Zach Haji, Jelpy, and Baba Snake. Lucci, Lucci, Lucci. This word plays on repeat in Kaku's mind with each hopping step through the underground smile factory, as it has for the last 20 hellish months, all of which have been spent as a prisoner, not only of the warlord Doflamingo and his psychotic subordinate Sugar, but in his own body. As following the battle with the Don Quixote family, he was transformed into a giraffe jack-in-the-box and pressed into indentured servitude, working endlessly in the awful place from which not even light can escape, let alone its captive workforce. Though his memories of the battle are hazy, as he can no longer remember his crewmates, many of whom work alongside him as fellow toys. He can still remember his captain, his family, and the fact that he was able to escape, meaning sooner or later he will return for him. As if two things are true of Rob Lucci, it is that he is thorough and vengeful. Two traits which will surely mean nothing can stop him until he recovers what he has lost. At least, that is what Kaku hopes, as it is only through this thin hope that he maintains his sanity. Meanwhile, Lucci is closer than Kaku and the other former CP9 members might have believed, as his small vessel gifted to him by Kaido has, at last, reached a point where the kingdom of Dressrosa is on the horizon. From the helm, Arlong barks this news to his captain, who already knows it, even going so far as to scout the fishman as he's trying to focus, as this is where all his observation hockey training will be put to the test, and he wants to sense out any danger beyond the obvious before they arrive. Seeing this annoyance, Krieg, who had just come up onto deck at the sound of this bellowing, does not speak, instead making his way to stand by his captain, and waiting until he is sure Lucci is ready to hear what he has to say before opening his mouth. In a solemn voice, the former East Blue Admiral asks if Lucci's got a plan, to which the Leopard Man nods, telling Arlong to listen up as well. Wanting to redeem himself from earlier, Arlong asks if he should fetch the new guy, but tersely, Lucci shakes his head, stating that this plan is just for their ears. Not long after this, do the Pidgeon Pirates dock in Dressrosa's southern harbor, or rather, Arlong, Krieg, and Hattori do, with the latter flying off to complete his own mission, which for the time being means staying far enough away from the other pirates to avoid being caught up in anything, while also remaining in visual range of the other two, having earned a role as supervisor by being the most senior and crucial member of the crew. Meanwhile, a pair of barrels wash up on Green Bit, seemingly unnoticed by anyone except their inhabitants, the first of whom is none other than Lucci, having put his time as a galley lost shipwright to good use in constructing this crude but covert means of transportation, which has more than achieved its purpose, as it allowed him and his compatriot to cross the small stretch of ocean without falling prey to the weakness of their devil fruits. Using a Shigan to unseal his barrel, the Catman then crawls his way out, before doing the same to the second barrel, revealing Kaido's underling and temporary crew member to be none other than X-Drake. Rising to his considerable height as he climbs out of the barrel, Drake muses that it seems Lucci's plan actually worked. Just enough disbelief in his tone for Lucci to infer scorn, without him actually having to imply it, and thus be seen as disrespectful. This is evidently as a result of Lucci's decision to partner up with him, despite his suggestion that he'd be better served partnering with Arlong or Krieg. Though this is not the only reason, as Drake has reason to suspect that Lucci does not trust him, considering he found a hidden Den Mushi in his quarters not long after the Pidgeon Pirates arrived in Onigashima. And while he has no solid proof the CP9 deserter planted it there, he is not one who believes in coincidences. Nonetheless, he does not say a word, instead falling in step behind Lucci as the Catman leads him across the iron bridge, trusting that Arlong would begun his diversion by now, giving them cover to move freely. In this, Lucci is quite correct, as shortly after making his way into town, Arlong had begun making as much of a nuisance of himself as possible in the hopes of drawing out this so-called Sugar, with a small crew having learned that name from Kaido during their first meeting, and Lucci having pieced together with his own lost memories, insofar as knowing he had been acting against Doflamingo when he lost that someone, so to repeat the process is the best way to get another look at the mysterious figure. Thankfully, terrorizing humans comes as naturally to Arlong as breathing, with him simply spouting more of his anti-human propaganda, and even roughing up a market of completely innocent shopkeepers in order to really sell the act. As the group had hoped, this does quickly attract the attention of the Doflamingo pirates, with Dofi himself assigning Dillinger to deal with this pest by throwing him in the Colosseum or something, both because he does not think some mouthy fishman merits anyone higher, and because it amuses him to imagine the racist face when he meets a child born of his kind and the species he seems to revile so heavily, whom will put him in chains. Dutiful as ever, Dillinger makes his way down from the palace, finding Arlong and Asacia, with the two engaging in a duel of fishmen, who each have their own style derived from, but distinctly separate to, fishman karate. For Dillinger, this comes in the form of a series of high-heeled kicks and flips, all the while his eyes turn that murderous red reminiscent of a sea king. Meanwhile, Arlong's style is all about the upper body, ripping out two sets of teeth to turn to weapons, which gnash brutally at the young hybrid's clothes, putting him at a steep disadvantage. All the while, the East Blue tyrant cockily calls him a guppy, not worthy of fighting. This greatly agitates Dillinger, and as is his way, when he gets mad, he blabs, with Krieg putting this to good use, jeering that he bets the half-fishman doesn't even know where to find Sugar in the first place. Falling for this hook, line, and sinker, Dellinger angrily retorts that everyone knows she can be found under the toy house, with this being all the duo need to hear, as Arlong stops holding back and quickly knocks the brat out with his fishman-style Geppo, deeming him a weakling who should be thrown out with the trash, since he's only 5 times as strong as a pitiful human unlike him. Meanwhile, Lucci and Drake are in the midst of an encounter of their own with the Don Quixote family, that being Baby 5. As having scaled the plateau up to the castle using the claws of their hybrid forms, the pair had the misfortune of appearing right where the black-haired woman had been sitting and enjoying her day, simply awaiting orders from Dofi to deploy somewhere with Buffalo. Cold as ever, Drake suggested they simply kill her while her back is turned, though Lucci bluntly shut the idea down, telling his new subordinate that they should just sneak around her, since the last thing they need is for her body or any evidence to be found, or at this point, even for her absence to be noted, which would raise suspicion and likely security here in the palace. Unbeknownst to the CP9 deserter, he has said the magic word, with Baby 5 perking up and approaching the two men, stars in her eyes, as she asks if that means they need her. Having not expected this reaction at all from an enemy, but recognizing that she is not growing hostile, Lucci replies in a blood deadpan that yes, in this case, he does, before attempting to step away from her. However, it seems nothing can be that simple, as she asks if there's anything else he needs, and figuring she's being sarcastic, he drolly replies that he needs a million berry, a covert way to the throne room, and someone to scrub the barnacles off his ship. Though to his shock, the strange maid happily shoves a stack of cash into his hands, saying she hopes that's enough, before pointing him down a side passage, which will lead him to the young master. And then, she goes striding away with a happy smile on her lips. A bit thrown by this, Drake and Lucci share a slightly confused look, though when nothing bad happens as a result of this encounter, the two begin following the path Baby 5 set, their eyes peeled for a trap, as surely there must be one waiting for them, right? Back with Krieg and Arlong, they have arrived in the underground port, having entered through the toy house, and found that beneath the cheery facade, it is a nest of criminal activities carried out by toy slaves. Naturally, such a breach does not go unnoticed, with Sugar commanding a dozen or so toys to seize these guys, while Trouble backs them up, unfortunately for the toys, who are in fact forced to attack against their will. They are no match for the pair of pirates, with Krieg's honed usage of the Rokushiku's iron body allowing him to withstand the hits, while Arlong uses Moonwalk to propel himself through the air as though it were water, meaning he can easily trample these annoying playthings, or at least, most of them, as 6 toys in particular prove extremely troublesome, those being a wind-up wolf, a bubble-blowing doll, a stuffed bull, a kabuki puppet, a frog that doubles as a wallet thanks to his zipper mouth, and a giraffe jack-in-the-box of all things. Unbeknownst to Arlong and Krieg, these are the other Pidgeon Pirates they are here to save. Though due to their contracts, they are forced to fight, with it being clear to see they have not stagnated during their time as toys. Quite the opposite. As with no reprieve from the endless drudgery of their work on the Joker, the CP9 deserters have spent much of their time when not wishing for rescue, figuring out new ways to use their seemingly permanent bodies to the fullest, should they ever be freed from this place. As a result, it is a close fight, as while they are likely comparable in strength, the CP9 deserters are hampered by weaker bodies, while the East Blue Editions have a numbers and combat advantage, as 3 toys each is the minimum to hold either pirate off unless working together. However, this all changes when Arlong and Krieg demonstrate the Rokushiki, as suddenly, the 6 toys realize that these guys must be with Lucci, and so begin actively working to subvert their contracts. As the slyest among them, this is Caulifla's doing, with her actively hampering herself and her allies with a storm of bubbles, since while Sugar commanded them to fight, she hadn't said how hard, with this loophole making all the difference. This in turn allows Arlong and Krieg to focus on Treble, with the Mucus Man being no threat against 2 pirates who had trained with officers of the Beast Pirates, and certainly not with one of them being a fishman fighting with so much moisture near him, meaning soon, the pair can turn their attention to capturing Sugar. As the little girl effectively, she is not very hard to corner, with Krieg snapping at her to put her hands up while leveling a finger for the Shigan, despite it being a bit of a bluff since he hasn't truly mastered it yet, something she does with a smile that makes Krieg wish he'd snagged a real gun, before in the next moment she lays them slightly on him and Arlong. Back in Dressrosa Castle, Baby 5's secret passage has worked like a charm, with Lucci and Drake finding themselves in the king's audience chamber, while up on the throne, Doflamingo seems a bit surprised to see them, before quickly snickering that the other oaks must have been a misdirect. Not bad at all, but why are they here? Do Lucci and his pal from the worst generation really think they can kill him? At the word kill, Diamante, Senor Pink, and Pika all rise from where they had been skulking in preparation for a fight. Though before it can break out, Drake states that they're here on Kaido's orders as a security test, meaning they're all on the same side. That is until Lucci cuts him off, changing his hand into a claw and threatening a finger pistol to the base of his ally's skull, ordering him to shut up, before stating that he's here to make a deal with the king. Finding this treachery highly amusing, Dofi tells the bearded man to elaborate, with Lucci offering to trade him Drake, and his proof that he's a marine spy for whoever the king took from him, since being the one to give that intel to Kaido would likely raise Dofi's esteem with the Beast Pirates. He then presents a Mushi, shocking Drake as he splutters that he found the bug Lucci put in his room, though here, the Catman reveals that he actually planted 2 bugs, an obvious one for Drake to find, making him think that he'd outsmarted Lucci, and a second to record him only once he was lulled into that false sense of security, while adding that this snail has recordings of him reporting in multiple times, more than enough for the King of Beasts to have his head, while scoffing that the man obviously wasn't trained for covert ops very well. By now, Doflamingo is beside himself with laughter as he agrees to the terms, extending a string to wrap around Drake's windpipe so he cannot escape, while another connects the Mushi from Lucci's outstretched hand and begins to play, quickly confirming the validity of the zone user's words. Satisfied with what he's gained, the Tyrant King orders Diamante to have Sugar come up so they can talk about reversing the effect of her fruit. Though here, they hit a little snag, that being that when they try to call down to the underground dock, there is no answer. Smirking a little, Lucci tells the pirate officer not to bother, since if his calculations are right, that little gremlin should be dead, or at the very least, incapacitated by now. In his high-pitched voice,
he could demands to know how that's possible,
with Lucci stating that Dofi was right, his small fries were a misdirect, but not for him, for Sugar, since he knew she'd do whatever she did to the rest of his crew to them. So he gave Hattori a special compartmentalized mission, that if he suddenly couldn't remember why he was somewhere, to attack the first person he saw, and considering he can remember his entire crew now, that plan must have gone off without a hitch. Krieg and Arlong may be newbies, but that pigeon is a pro. At once, Doflamingo goes from cackling to murderous, enraged that this piece of trash got one over on him, and so he orders his officers to kill Lucci. Though as the King of Dressrosa will learn, he has bigger problems than one Catman, as at that moment, a horde of former toys burst in, all ambitiously intent on getting revenge for their years of enslavement. Having counted on something like this happening, even if he didn't know the specifics going in, Lucci used the distraction to flee, though not before making one brief detour to gather the barely conscious form of ex-Drake, slicing his bindings with his claws and roughly pulling him to his feet. In a hoarse voice, the Marine spy croaks out a confused why, though flatly, Lucci tells the other man that he still has use for him yet beyond this plan, ordering him to run or die. This is good advice, as while the Don Quixote family officers are caught up in the chaos, the same cannot be said for Dofi himself, who in his moment of furious humiliation lets out an indiscriminate burst of conqueror's haki, dropping the rebels, his own men, and Drake, but not the fabled killing machine, who glares back at the sunglasses-clad king, his iron body hardened further by an iron will. However, one crack has appeared in his perfect facade, and through it leaks an unmissable amount of killing intent, as Lucci growls that the king should not take this flight for weakness or fear of him. No, like his bird, he is a professional, and it did not serve his ends to engage in open hostilities. But if Doflamingo wishes to stand in his way, he will put him in the ground. Incensed by this defiance, Dof begins to demonstrate why he is known as the Heavenly Demon, swinging a pair of strings from his palms which ignite with all the heat of his fury, as he declares that this brand will serve as a permanent reminder as to why trash does not oppose a god, something a former government dog should know well. Though it seems the warlord may have overestimated his own abilities, while underestimating Lucci's, as having expected some sort of childish tantrum. The Pidgeon Pirate leader employs a moonwalk to leap above these attacks, and even launches a Tempest Kick while from above, which strikes Dofi in the face, actually causing him pain. As the former world noble checks that his glasses are safe, and turns his throbbing face back to stare at Lucci, he sees that the metaphorical crack has widened, with more overt hate showing through the ex-assassin's eyes, as he fully adopts his hybrid form, and snarls out a question. Since the Beast Pirates are an organization built entirely on strength, where does Doflamingo scale? Is he a gifter? This question is punctuated by another pushing Tempest Kick and Moonwalk combo from the ground, a headliner, a finger pistol followed by paper arts to avoid the counterattack, a Toby Ropo even. Not that it matters, since he has surpassed them all with one goal in mind, growing to the point to be able to kill even the strongest of beasts and craziest of pirates. And were these words coming from anyone else, Doflamingo would have believed them idle talk, but as he looks now into Lucci's eyes, into the crack in his calm facade, which is widened to an endless empty pit of brutality, he cannot help but feel the first inklings of fear as it reminds him of Kaido's indomitable will for destruction. Nonetheless, even if this former government dog can compete with his devil fruit, there is nothing to say he can handle the power of an awakened one. To this end, the young master lays both hands on the floor of his throne room, and watches as they become a pillar of strings that shoot forward at Lucci. In a testament to Dofi's cruelty, he specifically uses the patch of ground where unconscious people who had once been toys lie, watching as they are torn to shreds, with the ensuing blood mist acting as a cover to make it harder for Lucci to anticipate when his attack will strike. At least, that would be the case if he had not trained his own haki, as while he does not possess the color of the Supreme King like Doflamingo, he is at least skilled enough in observation haki and sensing bloodlust to time his shave just right, evading the blow, and appearing right on Dofi's flank. With the ground turned to the strings, Dofi is able to sense this and bolster his own observation in order to retry his holy bullets, but this process only repeats itself. For a moment, the two combatants' eyes meet, Then in a voice that carries the rumbling roar of the leopard in it, Lucci acknowledges that Doflamingo is impressive for having awakened his devil fruit, though this too is an area in which he has surpassed him. Suddenly, Lucci's hybrid form begins to grow as if he's using life return, taking on a more defined shape, as a mane of black flames bursts from his head and shoulders, making the leopard man even more intimidating. However, in this act, Dofi sees a glimmer of hope, letting out a merciless Kaku. As while zone awakenings are powerful, they have a major drawback, that the will of the beast overrides the man, meaning soon this methodical assassin will be a slaughtering animal. And Dofi can kill an animal with ease, having been doing so since he was a boy. At least, that is what he thinks, until Lucci's clawed hand closes around his windpipe, the speed of his shave having doubled to the point where the heavenly demon with all his hockey could not see it coming. Looking into Rob Lucci's eyes in that moment, Doflamingo does not see the beast. He sees a cold-blooded man who is about to spell his doom. Croaking much like Drake did, Dofi demands to know how, to which Luffy replies that he learned much from the King of Beasts, namely, how to tame a beast, having spent much of the last 18 months taming this inner one, so that now he has perfect control. This is no longer an awakened devil fruit, it is a mastered one. Only now, in this moment before death, does Dofi reveal who he truly is, a coward. Compared to a true killer, he is merely a coward and a businessman, attempting desperately to de-escalate this fight he is clearly lost. Though fortunately, salvation does come for him, not in the form of his own words, but in a very familiar door, which opens up on the floor. Understanding what this means, Lucci tosses the battered king aside, snarling that he's lucky his mission parameters always come first. Then in a moment of deja vu, Lucci leaps for the throne room and into the unknown, this time with the unconscious Drake by his side rather than who's who, narrowly avoiding a final furious back attack from Dofi as he lands firmly on the deck of his ship. Looking up, the killing machine sees his crew both old and new, all standing ready for the orders of their captain, where he and Blueno share a look of deep understanding, respect, and appreciation for one another. And so rising to his feet, he gives the orders to get the hell away from this place, since he's seen enough of Dressrosa to last him a lifetime. This earns him a look from the other CP9 deserters, as if to say you think you're sick of this place. Though all the same, none object, seeing Lucci has actually made a joke, before raising the sails and catching the high winds, as it blows them out to sea. Taking a moment to recover himself from the exertion of his awakened form and hockey usage during that fight, Lucci sits in silence for a time, listening as the crew get to know each other, recounting their time apart, and filling each other in on all they have learned. However, there are two surprises which force the Pidgeon Pirate captain to engage. The first being that Baby 5 is aboard their ship, having taken Lucci's sarcasm seriously, and worked tirelessly to clean off all the barnacles before falling asleep below decks, and not awakening until Dressrosa is out of sight. This creates some debate as to what they should do with her, as most are in favor of dumping her overboard, and watching her drown as a devil fruit user, though Caulifla in particular wants to keep her, seeing her as something of a pet, and thinking they could always use more firepower, especially once she demonstrates what she can do, and so realizing she was as critical to their success as Satori was. Lucci agrees to add her to their growing roster, with this making the now ex-Don Quixote pirate smile, as it is confirmation that they all need her. Shockingly though, the news of a stowaway enemy turned new ally is nothing compared to the second surprise, as in an attempt to one-up Lucci with what he has achieved, Jabba reveals that he knows where Spondum is, having learned it during his time working in the underground port. As it turns out, one of Joker's business partners is Gil Tesoro, the casino king, and if what he's overheard is to be believed, a man matching Spondum's description is a frequent patron of his. Not only that, but during the chaos of the uprising when Atori frightened Sugar into unconsciousness, he grabbed an eternal post to Tesoro's place, which in his opinion is further proof as to why he should be the captain. Having oddly enough missed the braggadocioed wolf, Lucci does not countermand him, instead stating that he and the rest of the crew did well, though now is no time for celebration, as he orders Caulifla to set course to Gran Tesoro, as now that they are all back together, it's high time they kill that bastard Spendum. That's part 5, and we're getting pretty close to the end since my goal is still not to drag this one out all too much. I'm also just not feeling great at the time of recording, so I'm also going to stick with the less detailed visual / near podcast style we swapped to with the last part. As with a little further thought, I've decided to try and avoid as many conventions as I can with the story going forward, since it's not all that popular, and has become a lot closer to a passion project. That said, shoutouts to Mr. Negative for helping me make some edits, and to our supporters of the day, Cody Keene, Benny Montoya, Indigo Saturn 64, Kier Skywalker, Jester DeMille, Kieran Lightfoot, Assassin139, Jarion, Brian Daniel, Chicho Earthbound, and John. Thanks to these guys and all the other names rolling across screen right now, as they do so much to support the channel. And as a result, they'll also be seeing my next video much earlier than you guys, like they did this one. All that said, nothing left for me to do but to tell you to go beyond plus ultra. Take care of yourselves and have a nice day, and I'll see you guys next time.